This is the Black Empowerment Show with Sista Shanice, giving you an African-centered worldview perspective. Keep it locked this way, it's the real deal. Bucky Josada. Ba-da-pa-da-pa thing, play by the great king.
Sista Shanice in the house. If you're hearing my voice, it means there's breath in your body. It means it's a new day. A new day for you to be working towards accomplishing all the goals and aspirations that you have painted up inside of you. Tune in to Sista Shanice on Galaxy Afiwi, the only de-brainwashing station. Every Wednesday for Black Empowerment shows and alternative Saturdays for the community talk shows from 10 a.m. through to 1 p.m. Join the discussions, join the debate and get involved. You can tune in via www.galaxyafiwi.com or for Android phone users, go to Play Store and download the Galaxy Afiwi app. Or find us via TuneIn in the app. Sista Shanice in the house. In the house. Galaxy Afiwi, providing a platform for the voiceless to be heard. Spread the word. That's right. They may conquer our land, but they will never conquer our will. And don't we have a fight on our hands? We have a fight. We have fights locally. We have fights nationally and internationally. Caller 923, I can see you, but we're not going to take any calls right now because we're going to go over to discuss another very serious topic that we need to be aware of. And recent events here in the UK that we need to be aware of. So callers, if you can please hold your call. We will be opening the line again after we've had a discussion with our brother Lee Jasper on the line. He's going to be telling us about a deeply tragic and troubling story that has, very serious and far-reaching implications for all members of the black community. It concerns, the injustice, even when one of our children is murdered, these people seem to want to find excuses not to take the murderer through the judicial system. So callers, please hold your calls for now. Let's go over to our brother Lee Jasper, who's going to be telling us about the case of young Christopher Kapessa. My brother Lee, are you on the line?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Greetings. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear through my earphones, and it looks as though you're coming over well in the monitor as well. Welcome to the Big G.
Yeah, long time. I haven't been on Galaxy, so it's good to be back.
Great to have you back as well. My brother, we have new listeners from all around the world all the time. And although, those of us here in London and maybe to some extent the UK may be aware of you and your works and who you are, some of our international listeners may well not be. So please just introduce yourself to the Galaxy family.
Lee Jasper. I'm a community activist. I was the first black deputy mayor of London. I was the director of the 1990 Trust, a civil rights charity, founder of Operation Black Vote, the Black Voter Registration campaign, the first black organisation to take race equality as a human rights issue to the United Nations on behalf of black communities in Britain in the 1990s. Gave evidence at the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, and was responsible for policing inequalities in London from 2000 to 2008 in my role as deputy mayor. Helped fund the Bernie Grant Centre, the Stephen Lawrence Centre, the Black Cultural Archive Centre, and a resume which other people can look up by Googling me and finding out more detail. But that's a sort of a brief overview. I'm currently a member of Black Sox, BLAKSOX, which is a Garveyite self-help movement for people of my advanced age who are seeking to leave legacy and develop leadership amongst the next generation of young black leaders.
Rise yourself up, my brother, for the works that you've been doing in the community over the decades, and also now for the new vision of training up the young stars so that they can continue with the works and we can leave a legacy behind. And you have already mentioned a number of campaigns that you have been involved in raising awareness about and championing, and you've recently returned from Wales, I gather, because there's a very tragic case there that you have been following from the outset that maybe all of our listeners may not be aware of. So please, my brother, outline the case of Christopher Kapessa for us. Tell us about what's been going on in Wales and how it's impacted on one of our families there.
Sure. Christopher Kapessa is part of a family that lives in a small rural village in South Wales. In July, the 1st of July last year, Christopher came home from school, told his mum that he was going out to play. It's a very small village, less than maybe 30 or 40 dwellings in the entirety of this village that is nestled deep in the Welsh valleys. And off he went to play. Within a couple of hours of that, he was reported dead, having, in quotes, slipped from a 6-foot steep concrete causeway next to an iron bridge into a dark, murky river. He was out with a group of what we believe to be between 14 and 19 local children. They were the only black family in that village, literally. And the children who were with him at the time all reported that, most of them reported that Christopher had slipped and fell into the river. This came as a shock to the family because Christopher can't swim, and therefore he wouldn't really be going near or anywhere too near the edge of a riverside, particularly with a huge drop into a murky, dark river. Nevertheless, what happened was his body was recovered from the scene by passing off-duty firemen, and the police came and investigated. The first call to the emergency services was made about 20 to 6 on the evening. And by 8 o'clock that night, the South Wales police had concluded that Christopher died as a consequence of a tragic accident. There were so many inconsistencies swirling around social media from the young people involved and who witnessed the event, that the family began to question the police as to say, well, hold on a minute, there seems to be other suggestions that either Christopher was pushed or he was bullied and then pushed into that river rather than it been a tragic accident. The CID officers at the time, CID officer Paul Edwards of South Wales Police, became extraordinarily defensive and even almost aggressive to the family, saying that no, that was just rumour, that Christopher had slipped, that they concluded that was the end of the investigation, there was nothing more to investigate, and almost took personal offence at the suggestion that there was another likely version of events, and became quite hostile to the family. Nevertheless, the family persisted, and I worked with Hilary Brown, who's a lawyer who has offices in Cardiff, almost an hour away from the village, and indeed here in Stockwell in London, and somebody I've worked with for 30 years, contacted me immediately to say we need some help and some pressure in relation to this. I was involved, Suresh Grover, who was from the monitoring group where Stafford Scott was working up till late last year, all got involved to put pressure on the South Wales Police to reconsider that this was a tragic accident. By the end of that month, July, South Wales Police was facing enough pressure that they reopened the investigation. And having reopened the investigation, they took 6 or 7 months to interview over 140 people. Now, so bear in mind, in the initial investigation that determined it was an accident, only 4 of the young people involved were interviewed by the police. And according to this Paul Edwards, a CID officer from South Wales Police, he told the family that these 4 children that they couldn't possibly be lying because they each provided independently a remarkably consistent account. So the family put the pressure on to them to look at the case again, said that all the children should be interviewed, that all of their phones should be confiscated to look at what the social media chat was on WhatsApp and other social media forums that they were using. There was a suggestion that somebody had filmed the event. That wasn't investigated initially. So by the time the serious crime investigation took place at the end of July now, for some 4 weeks after Christopher's tragic death, they did that investigation, submitted it to the Crown Prosecution Service just before Christmas. And on the 19th of July, the Crown Prosecution Service wrote to Alina Joseph, who is the mother of Christopher Kapessa, saying that they'd considered the files as presented at the new investigation, and in fact there was sufficient evidence to consider a charge of manslaughter because they discovered through a proper police investigation that Christopher had been pushed with 2 hands in the back by a suspect who we can't name because they were 14 at the time and they're only 15 now, and pushed Christopher into the river and caused his death. In that letter, they said that they felt it was, whilst there was sufficient evidence to consider a man's charge of manslaughter, they felt it was not in the best interest to do so. They described the suspect as intelligent and mature, with otherwise a good record, and that the point of the criminal justice system, where it pertains to young people, is to prevent people entering into and being criminalised by the criminal justice system. They also quoted the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child in relation to the prevention of his criminalisation. And they said and concluded that, so in their view, whilst there was sufficient evidence for this manslaughter charge, that they would not be prosecuting because they didn't feel it was in the public interest. And on Monday of this week, we had a press conference in Butte Town Community Centre, chaired by Hilary Brown from Virgo Legal Consultancies, attended by Alina Joseph, Christopher Kapessa's mother, myself from BAME, BAME Lawyers for Justice, which is a umbrella group of Society of Lawyers and all sorts of other ethnic minority lawyers associations and community activists, as well as the General Secretary, Sajinder Taj, who's the General Secretary of the Wales Trade Union Congress. And that press conference, we outlined the mother's view, and people can read more detail of what took place online. It's all there. If you go to Lee Jasper blogspot.com, you can find out lots more detail about this case. But at that press conference, we made the proposition that, quite frankly, we charged the CPS and the police with institutionalised racism. The failure of South Wales Police to investigate is echoes of the failures that were first seen in the Stephen Lawrence murder case some 27 years ago. We charged the Crown Prosecution Service with institutionalised racism because we think if 14 black boys had been involved with the death of a 13-year-old white boy, then they would have certainly faced a different outcome. We charged the CPS with institutionalised racism additionally because we believe that those 4 children who gave that initial account could not have coordinated and conspired together to give that, in quotes, remarkably consistent account unless they'd been coached by their parents. And we believe that those parents, therefore, of those children should be investigated for a potential charge of attempting to pervert the course of justice. We want the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, to revisit their decision, and there is a process of appeal against their decision, which is commonly known as a review. That review has been submitted today. We want to move the family out of that village, although it has to be said, although these 4 individuals were seemingly conspired to prevent the course of justice and lie about the circumstances pertaining to Christopher's death, the whole village, the other parents of the other 10 or so children, when they heard that the police had concluded there was no case to answer, phoned the police and demanded that they come and interview their children, who told them the truth, that actually it wasn't an accident at all. And so it's thanks to the rest of the people in the village that the truth finally came about. And once it came to the sad process of burying Christopher, the local village raised £10,000 to provide assistance, financial assistance to the family with burial costs and so on and so forth. And so that's where we are today. We're appealing the verdict for the Crown Prosecution Service not to prosecute. We're charging them with institutionalised racism. We're charging the police with institutionalised racism. They failed to investigate this case, and we'll be thinking about we'll be pursuing civil action against the police in regards to that failure. And we're raising money through a crowd funding page for Christopher Kapessa, so that we can fund the legal fees necessary to fight this case and bring a private prosecution if the CPS refuses to prosecute. We have instructed Michael Mansfield, the famous human rights barrister and QC, to represent the family, and we are now supporting the family and developing this legal strategy to try and bring justice for this family.
Rise yourself up, my brother Lee, for the works that you're doing there to support this family that is clearly isolated and away from their community in that rural part of Wales. How are they feeling now? Surely they must want to be relocated from there as well.
Yes, they're keen to move away. The scene is now a tragic reminder every day of their loss of their 13-year-old son. Christopher was by all accounts, a light and joy to the world, full of humour, full of dynamism, and all of his friends and family who supported during the funeral testified to his comedic wit and charm and intelligence. A nicer boy you couldn't hope to meet. So the village, even though responded as positively as one could in those circumstances, it still remains the site of the death of that young boy, and the family will want to move as soon as we're able to organise it.
Yeah, I mean, clearly a very, wicked act indeed by the murderer and those who were, immediately around the murderer, who probably, what do we know about the circumstances leading up to that incident? Because, was there a culture of racism amongst the young boys there, or was this something out of the blue? I mean, had Christopher complained in the past about experiencing racial harassment? A few callers have been trying to come through whilst you've been speaking, Lee, so I'll just start adding them in the background now. So callers that have been trying to call in, I'll just add you now if I'm able to do so. But Lee, what has the environment been? What was the environment like for young Christopher as a young black boy in an almost all-white village?
Well, he'd certainly been subject to racial bullying at school. The family had raised those issues and were deeply concerned that he'd been victimised whilst at school. There's no sense in which the boys or children that were involved in his bullying at school were the same children that were involved in in his tragic death at the side of the river. But you will know that racism is quite contagious. And sometimes you can be a victim of racism without a racist word being said or uttered in anger. And so one can only think it wasn't anybody else who was pushed in the river. There's not a history of people being pushed in the river. It was this sole black boy who it was known because he'd spoken about it with friends in the village before that he couldn't swim. So knowing he couldn't swim and being pushed in the river, I think gives us an indication of the kind of culture and the context were in that village. But certainly he had been victim previously to racial bullying at school.
Yeah, very tragic case. And, we're talking about just now on the culture of racism in that part of the village and in the school. And here we also hear of the police officers investigating this matter very quickly, wanting to try and conclude it as a very tragic accident without even interviewing, before even having interviewed all of the young people who were there. And we know, don't we, what the treatment would have been like if it was a group of young black boys and a white boy who'd been pushed in the river. That's just what makes it so blatantly obvious. We hear the judges, we hear them every day talking about coming down hard on crime, and coming down heavy on young people. And yet, when it comes to their own young people who are accused of murder, where there's evidence as well found that's been presented by witnesses to say that he was deliberately pushed, they're still trying to make the decision not to prosecute. Okay, let me start bringing in a couple of the callers, if that's okay with you, Lee, and then we can talk and respond to questions as we go. So we've got an unknown caller on the line. I'm trying to add another unknown caller, but I'm unable to add you. You'll have to call back when the line is free. But for now, let's ask the caller on the line to introduce themselves. Greetings, caller. Who do we have on the line? Greetings. Okay, all right, Lee. Sometimes we have a problem with our phone system. It's a recent problem in that sometimes some callers on the line block other callers from coming in. And I think your line might actually be blocking other callers from coming in. I've been trying to add them. I thought I added one, but I haven't been able to do so. But what I'd like you to do, Lee, is please, if you can listen offline to the points that are being raised by the callers and then call back in again, and then I should be able to add you whilst I've got other callers on the line. Is that okay with you?
Well, one of the problems is I can't get you online. I've tried through the app that you sent me. Yes. So I can't actually listen to the show online through the TuneIn app. I've no idea why, but it just won't let me do it because I was trying to listen in from 11:30 to the conversation prior to coming on. Right. So I have some difficulty in that regard. So I'm not sure.
Right. So you tried downloading it. What about if you go onto the internet, www.galaxyafiwi.com, listen live?
I shall try that now.
Yes, if you could, and then listen in, and we'll take some of the calls, and then please do call back in to respond to the points that have been raised. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you will prompt me to call back in when you want me to respond, I'll call back in.
Will do. Thank you so much. So our brother Lee is going to be listening offline now. So callers, the lines are now open for you to call in so that we can hear any other questions that you may want to put to our brother Lee, and also so that you can make any comments or statements about this case. We are talking about the case of Christopher Kapessa. We know that members of his family are listening in as well. We want to let them know that although they're all the way out in Wales, they do have a community here in London and around the world that cares about their suffering, and is here to support in any way that we may be able to do so. So, greetings, unknown caller. Who do we have on the line?
Well, rise up, Queen Goddess. It's Brother Naya.
Welcome, Black Brother Naya. Thank you for giving us... Brother Lee is listening offline. He's just setting up so that he can hear offline. But as you've heard, he's outlined this very, very tragic case of one of our young boys, young 13-year-old, who was murdered. And the CPS and the police, the Crown Prosecution Services and the South Wales Police are being accused of institutional racism for refusing to prosecute the known suspect who's responsible for this young boy's death. What say you, my brother?
Well, I'm actually a fan. You might be surprised. I'm actually a fan of Lee Jasper because he gave me an interview when I was doing a radio station, and it takes some, I think you have to look at his history and see that he's been persistent. But what I need to say is that was he there when Smiley Culture, right, was assassinated, and was he there when Mark Duggan? And a lot of the thing is that we don't understand is that these people who are he had it's the Obama situation. It's the Obama situation. Okay, you got this position of power, right? But you're controlled by the powers that be.
We know that, my brother, when you work within these institutions and organizations, they do tend to try and control you. And we know that, one person can't be there for every single tragedy that happens within our community. But right now we're focusing on, the tragedy that's hit this family of ours in Wales, and the treatment and the lack of support that they've been getting from the police and the Crown Prosecution Services, to do what they're meant to do, which is to bring a case of manslaughter, if not murder, against the culprit. There's sufficient evidence for them to do so. And, the investigation, revealed that there was a culprit that was identified, but they went as far as trying to justify why they should not take action against this, against the murderer, and claim that it's in the public interest that they don't take action. How can it be in the public interest for them to allow a murderer, to continue to live in the community? My brother, go ahead.
It's just like, as I said, it's just like these pedophiles, it's like, listen, I have no argument, but what I'm trying to say is that I'm standing up for my brother Smiley and people that's going to be Mark Duggan, and the people. There's no, you're forgetting about these people.
No, we're not, my brother. We know that he adds to. Go ahead.
Sista Shanice, right? If a man come in your yard, right, and stab you up and kill you, right, I'll come to get them. I don't give a shit what they're saying. You understand?
We hear
right?
you.
Don't get them people there. So these people like Lee Jasper, right? They had the power to. This is the thing. These people.
I hear what you're saying, my brother. That's a whole different discussion, really. And this is what it is. Some of our people who are in positions, what power do they really have in those positions? That is a conversation that we need to have. But that's not the conversation that we want to have right now. Where we want to be talking about how we can support the family that has lost, tragically lost their 13-year-old son, and then we have the authorities that are supposed to be, taking the appropriate action and make sure that, it goes through the due process of the law, standing in the way of that due process. Now, this has wider implications because we're at a time now where and you were saying it earlier, or one of my callers was saying it earlier, how, the right wing is rearing its ugly head again. We cannot allow, for a second, in this country, that it's okay, for us to give the impression it's okay for those who murder our children to be allowed to continue walking the streets unprosecuted.
But what is Lee Jasper's wing? He come with so many different wings. He's under this. I can't even remember the letters he's under.
Okay, yeah, he's part of numerous organisations. Yeah, okay. So what I don't want to do, my brother, is personalise it. Let me leave it there. Let me open the lines up for those who want to come in and talk about this tragic accident and what they think maybe we can do as a community to support this family, or what we can do to kind of help the pressure that's mounting out there, to bring a case against the culprit. But keep it locked to the Big G, okay, my brother? And keep listening, and let's hear if maybe some of our other callers are able to call in with some solutions. That's what we're looking for right now. Rise yourself up.
I don't want a bonfire upon Lee Jasper, because Lee Jasper.
Good. Well, rise yourself up, my brother. There's too much man love tear down and one another too much. We know that. One love.
Oh,
okay. So the lines are now open. If you want to call in, we need to be talking about, how we can support this young, the mother that has lost this young teenager, and we're also raising awareness of the case as well. Our brother Naya was highlighting a number of other cases as well where the murderers are still out there and seem to have got away with murdering members of our community. I'm as concerned as he is about that. But we have to, as a community, come together and be addressing these issues. We cannot allow, the wider members of this community to feel that they can actually get away with murdering a brother or sister and not hear from us as a people. The lines are now open. Should you want to give us a call and let us hear what your views and your thoughts are about this particular case, or any questions that you might want to put to Lee Jasper about this case, who is supporting the family and has, just returned from Wales. How many of us are going to get up and go to South Wales, to a press conference to support a family? How many of us are prepared to help to organise press conferences outside of, our immediate backyard, much less, in South Wales? So, let's give credit where credit's due. Give me a call on 0207 193 0174. That's 0207 193 0174. We have a family in mourning. We have a sister in mourning. We have a sister who was relocated to South Wales for her own safety. And look what's happened to one of her children, in a place where she was supposed to be safe. And that in itself, is a conversation that we need to have about the role of the local authorities relocating our people, across the breadth of this country, irrespective of whether or not they've got the support of the community around them. We need to see what's going on here in this country. So we're live and direct. You're in tune to Galaxy Afiwi, the Big G, the only de-brainwashing station. And at the moment, we're talking about the case of our young 13-year-old, Christopher Kapeesa, who was murdered. And if that's not bad enough, we pay our taxes, we pay our dues. We would expect, this is in the ideal world, that the police and the CPS are there to protect us as a people as well, are there to protect our children. And that if, one of our children is murdered, we would expect, where there is evidence that, of who the murderer is, that they would bring a case against that murderer. That has not been found to be the case in this particular incident involving Christopher Kapeesa. So some callers were trying to call in while I had our brother Lee on the line. The lines are now free. So give us a call. We want to hear your thoughts and your opinions of this case. The family is claiming racism. They're claiming that the authorities are acting in a racially biased way for not bringing a case against the murderer, the one who was responsible for pushing their son to his death in the river. So what are your views? What are your thoughts? Are you aware of this case? Have you read about it in the paper? Have you been hearing about it? What are your thoughts? We want to hear from you. The lines are now open. So give us a call so that we can have that conversation. The number to call in on is 0207 193 0174. Caller, please put your listening device on mute and interact with us. Greetings. I recognise the number. Is that Brother Triple X?
Yeah, it's me again. I just decided to phone in again because I've been listening. Yeah, this case, it's troubling because a lot of us live in London and we don't realise that outside of London there's a lot of racism, much more than in London. I'm not saying it's not in London, but outside London, especially in Wales and Yorkshire and them places down, in the depths of England, it's a lot of racism, And what I can't imagine how this parent must feel, to know that she's got away from London, supposed to be in an idyllic place, part of England, in Wales, and to have her son being pushed into water and drowned. You imagine the nightmare this woman must be going through.
Yeah.
And then to have, people who's there to protect us. They always say they're there to protect us. You ever realize that? The police are always there to protect us, but they're not there to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to persecute and prosecute us. They're there to protect white people and rich people. I keep telling people that. The police are not for us. If they were for us, then the country would be better off because they'd be there protecting us as a force for us as well as white people. They're not. They're just interested in persecuting the young people and giving them criminal records so they can't get onto the work ladder after they leave school, so they can't get a fair slice of society, So this woman must be in, so I can't imagine what she's going through, And this country is getting worse and worse and worse. I thought, growing up here from I was about 8 years old till now, I thought this country would have got better, but it's got worse, Imagine if that was my child, and then you're going to lie and say no crime was committed, and then after people have come, their conscience would bite them, and they'll come around and say, yes, he was pushed into that water. The Crime Prosecution Service and the legal service says these white boys are squeaky clean, so they can't be prosecuted. Now you imagine if that was a black boys that push a white boy in a river. You think that would happen?
I don't think it would have happened. I think they would have brought out their joint enterprise law and they would have had all 14 of those young teenagers in the dock. And as you quite rightly say, they would have been in the process of criminalising all of them and charging them all with murder. And we need to realise...
at least manslaughter. Manslaughter, I think that's what.
Manslaughter.
For the law. Because they've pushed him in. Even if he can't swim, he's drowned. But it's not deliberate murder. Because it's a child of manslaughter, yeah? By the end of the day, it is murder still, but the law said it's manslaughter because they've deliberately killed him knowing he can't swim.
Yeah.
And, to know that this woman can't get no justice and that black people can't get no justice in this country, it's getting worse. So if that don't show you we must get together as a people, then like Marcus Garvey said, when your back is against the wall, what are you going to do? Get together. So maybe it's a good thing that these things are happening to us because now we can start getting together, And big up Lee for doing what you're doing, Lee, and to go all the way up to Wales to defend these people because it's true. A lot of us wouldn't leave our house to go all the way up in South Wales to support somebody when you don't even know them,
Right.
So let's give credit where credit is due, yeah. And let us try and do something for this woman, set up a page for her. Or fund me or something, or support for her. Let her know that the community is supporting her. I know she's gone up to live somewhere where, I don't live in her wheels, but at the end of the day, she had her reasons, So let's support her as a community, yeah?
Thank you very much, my brother Triple X. Rise yourself up for the words of support there, for the family, and also for the warning to our community. We better see the writing of the wall on the wall. And this is, another tragic reminder, that we as a people need to come together to support each other, because, the writing's on the wall. It's getting worse here. We've got the new government, very right-wing in its views, and a police force that actually feels as though, they can get away with not prosecuting murderers and groups of people who are responsible or involved, in the demise of one of our children. The lines are now open. Lee, give us a call back in. We are 15 minutes away from the top of the hour, and that's when my show ends. The callers that we're trying to call in, now is the time to call in, because I'm asking Lee to call back in again. So that he can give us the GoFundMe account details and other information that will be needed in order for us to support the parent in this case. So, Galaxy family, we need to feel your support. We need to feel your humanity right now for one of our mothers who is grieving over the loss of her child. And I think he was one of a number of children that she had. So, his brothers and sisters, are also grieving right now. And we heard from Lee, what a beautiful child he was indeed. And to lose one of your children in this sort of way must be, just unthinkable. So let's try and support, and let's also look to see what we can do to put pressure on the police and the CPS to actually take action in this case as well. Bringing in Ras Itek. Rise yourself up, Brother Ras Itek. How you doing?
Greetings, my sister. Greetings, listeners.
Greetings.
Yes, sorry, I'm so disturbs me to hear such tragic news that we're always having to fight for justice, and it just saddens my heart. All the time we're hearing about these atrocities that's happening within our community, and it feels like we're hopeless. We have no sense of justice. All we see is injustice every day. And when we hear about such a case like this, where we know the institution is racist, we know that the police force and the all the support that they talk about, they never are talking about our community. When we hear the white man talking about this and that and the other, and we're seeing the adverts, they're only talking about us. You see. So I just wanted to, just to send my condolences to the family and the work that Lee Jasper's doing. You have to big him up as well. I see his show from time to time on YouTube. Just that one thing I just wanted to put out there, sister, really, is that the balance, you see, in South Africa, if a black was to kill a black, not only would the case not really be investigated, if the perpetrator of the crime were found, he would maybe get about 2 or 3 years. If the perpetrator had killed a white person in South Africa, they would be doing life.
Yes, my brother, that goes back to the days of Ian Botha. He'd actually written that into a kind of South African constitution, instructing the police not to investigate black on black crime, or to be inactive or not to punish black crimes, to encourage them to commit more crimes and to commit crimes against each other, because they know that they'll be able to get away with it. But when it comes to committing crimes against Europeans, like you say, they feel the full force of the law to prevent them or to deter them from doing so. Brother Lee, I was just trying to add you back again, but I'm unable to add you. Problems with the system. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I just wanted to make that point, my sister.
Yes.
You see, and we all know that this is a very racist country, regardless of what people say and the rest of it. This is a very racist country. You step out of any of our major cities, and it is white dominated, and you will be targeted. It's not a question of if; it's a question of when. So, just want to rise up all the brothers and sisters out there. Be strong. Come together. Fight together.
Yes, my brother. And we wait for Brother Lee to, to advise us on what course of action he feels that we could be taking, in order to support this family, so that we are, seen to be fighting and challenging this decision, and to force them to overturn this decision. Rise this up, my brother. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just one other point, really, that I think Brother Naya was trying to articulate. I don't want to kind of pick his mouth or anything, but there is so much happening at the moment in the white community with regards to paedophilia within the system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And these crimes have been going on for decades, if not centuries, and they will never get to the bottom of it because the system itself is endemically racist and misogynistic and all kinds of words that they want to use. So when we talk about our people, we're not even on the map. When they're looking at our crimes and our suffering, it doesn't even come into existence for them. They just see it as, okay, it's just another black person. Oh well, they have to get over it. So we have to put our strength forward.
Yes.
We have to put it to the top of the agenda each time, and the only way we can do this is by talking, discussing issues such as this, so that we can come together as a community to show that the powers that be, that yes, we do have a voice.
Absolutely.
Regardless of how you may think about us, we do have a voice.
Absolutely.
So rise up, everyone, still.
Thank you so much, Brother Rasai Tech. We do have a voice. We are a community. Stay strong, my brother. Let me bring back in Brother Lee Jasper. Can you hear us through your phone? Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, you're back with us now. We had a couple of callers. The earlier callers that was trying to call in didn't call back, but we're 10 minutes away from the top of the hour, and I think it's important that we bring you back actually to tell us how we go forward, with this case.
Yes, I've sent you the link to the crowdfunding page, and that would be enormously helpful if people could focus on the providing the financial support, because if the Crown Prosecution Service doesn't go forward, then we want to launch a private prosecution. Yeah. And we still want to sue the South Wales Police for their failure to initially investigate this heinous crime. So we'll be holding a meeting in probably Brixton, a date which I'm going to be organising today. I'm looking for a venue. And we're going to bring Alina Joseph, the mother of Christopher, to London, along with Suki Sharma, who's the young Somali child who died within the same week, having been pushed into a river in Manchester. That's a entirely separate case, but it's remarkably similar, with the Greater Manchester Police coming to exactly the same conclusion. A young 13-year-old Somali child. So we'll try to bring those two families together for a meeting in Brixton, and we'll certainly get back to yourself, Shanice, and the station to advise when the date for that meeting will be. But if people can focus on donating what money they can to help us raise the funds necessary in order that Alina Joseph and her family can begin the process of lodging these private and civil prosecutions, that would be incredibly helpful.
Right, thank you. So the link that you sent, did you send it to my WhatsApp, or did you?
I can send it to your WhatsApp. I sent it to the Galaxy Skype
Okay, I'm not sure how I get the messages off of Galaxy Skype. Yeah, please WhatsApp it. And also, if you can tell us, so it's a GoFundMe account, and what's the title of the GoFundMe page?
Hold on, I'll just, it's Crowd Justice.
Crowd Justice.
And give me 1 second, and I shall just pull it up and tell you what that is.
Okay, fantastic.
It's Crowd Justice, and it's justice for, the number 4, Christopher, then a minus sign, and then Kapessa. So that's justice, number 4, Christopher, minus sign, Kapessa. And I shall post it to your WhatsApp. Yes. So you have it there as well, Shanice.
Okay, and then there's also a text line number, a Galaxy text line number. I'll forward it to that text line number as well. So people will need to go to www.crowdjustice for Christopher Kapessa. If they Google that, they should be able to find it. And so we can help the family financially by all donating a little. Every little helps. You know, those who can afford a lot can donate a lot. So that, you know, and is this the road it looks like we're going to have to go through? What's the point of us having, you know, contributing through our taxes towards a police service when we need it is, you know, as has been said, you know, it's obvious it's not there for us. As Brother Triple X was saying, I don't know if you heard him, he was saying that the police force are just there, it seems, to persecute our young people, to criminalise our young people, to prosecute our young people, and to protect their own. You know, and if this is the real face of the police force, you know, because obviously we're in their country, we're living within their systems and under their forces, you know, how are we going to defend ourselves? You know, if we're within a system, being contained within a system which is just so anti-black and discriminatory and racist.
Sister Shanice, I wonder if I could just address the point why she was living in a rural area of Wales. Mm-hmm. This sister had been the victim of the most horrendous domestic violence. Mm-hmm. Her husband had actually committed arson and burned her home down to the ground. Luckily, neither her and her children were in it at a time. But such was the level of threat to her that she was moved for her own safety into this village. So this wasn't somebody who was there by choice, seeking to move up the affluent ladder and away from her community. This is somebody who fled in fear, for fear of her life and the life of her children. So I just wanted to... It
just makes the tragedy even worse, doesn't it? Absolutely. And how many children does she have?
She has another 4 children.
Right, so a mother with 5 children and a husband who tried to murder her and her children, burnt her house to the ground, that led to her having to flee to that remote part of the country, only to have one of her sons meet his death at the hands of some young white racists. It's so tragic. Tragedy upon tragedy. The poor mother. We need to be there to support her. She must feel right now that tragedy is just following her life right now.
She's obviously her and her boys all are affected, very deeply traumatized by what they've had to go through. And you see, because the suspects have lied consistently, they've extended that family's grief and pain for the last 8 months entirely unnecessarily. They could have said, well, it was an accident, we were, you know, we did it, but we didn't mean, whatever the rationale. But every day that has gone past, this mother has revisited what could have happened, what did happen, who's telling the truth, who's telling lies, and that torture for her and her family has only recently come to an end. So her grief continues, and as she says, she can only live now one day at a time.
Wow. And to try and get justice for her son, and get justice from, you know, those who are prepared to collude, you know, not just in this case, but as you're saying, in another similar case in Manchester, where the police and the criminal services are acting in a similar manner to deny our people the justice that we rightly deserve. You know, we've got to come together. We've got to organise, because, you know, it's going to get from bad to worse. That's how I see it. It's going to get worse. And this is just an indication of what we've got to come. Lee, I want to rise yourself up for, you know, the works that you're doing, fighting the battles out there. Just remind us again of that crowdfund page, and also anything else that we could be doing to support this family or to raise awareness of this particular case.
It's Crowd Justice is the fundraising page, and it's Christopher, the number 4, then a minus sign, then Kapessa, and
spell Kapessa, please, for the family.
Kapessa.
Right.
Kapessa. And people can donate there and support the very many legal actions that will arrive from this family. There will be a campaign page opening on Facebook. You can visit my blog at leejasper.blogspot.com to read more and also get signposted to these campaign pages where people can join and be continually updated as we support this family through the very long months, and we'll know it will be long months.
And possibly years as well. There's so many other similar cases. We just have to think of the deaths in police custody, you know,
That's right.
and the challenge that we have getting justice. But we must never give up the fight.
Well, we're a people that survived the greatest crime in history.
Yeah.
Our resources and our capacity to endure are infinite. We're stronger than the enemy that faces us, and that's why we pose such a threat. So although that we may be in the darkest of nights today, we always know that we are the people, having survived what no other people can survive, have what it takes to pursue justice, however long that struggle may take.
We certainly do. And our history shows us that when we come together, we are a mighty force to be reckoned with, irrespective of the weapons that the enemies may have. Rise yourself up, Brother Lee. Thank you for joining us on the Big G and for making us aware of this particular case and your involvement and the works that you're doing and how we can support as a community. Let's hope our community turns out in force once we hear the date, time and venue of that meeting in London or Brixton somewhere, where we can hear from the mother and the family. Thank you, my brother. One love.
Thank you, sister, and big up all the Galaxy Radio listeners. We appreciate the time you've given us today, and huge respect for the station itself for continuing the process of de-brainwashing.
Rise yourself up, my brother.
Rise.
One love.
One love.
So, Galaxy family, that was our brother Lee Jasper, working as always in the community to, you know, try and, you know, bring exposure to the injustices and the inequalities that we're facing as a people. But we know, you know, there's only so much he can do on his own. He needs the backing and the support of the entire community so that, you know, the powers that be feels as though there is a force and that we are a force to be reckoned with. And, you know, when we, you know, come together, we have to try and put personalities and isms and schisms to one side, you know, to focus on, you know, the family and the individuals that need their help and support, you know, and this poor mother, this beautiful sister needs our support. So we're at the top of the hour. Sister Shanice has been here with you for the last 3 hours, and I hope, you know, you have been with me as well for all of that time. Galaxy family, I want to thank you so much for your support, and I want to thank you so much for the support that you're going to give to this family. Here, look, we might be able to just sneak in a last caller. Greetings, caller. Who do we have on the line?
Yo, Sister Shanice.
Rise yourself up, Brother Naya. Welcome, Black.
Yes. I don't believe a word what Lee Jasper says.
How can you not believe a word? Paid. Okay, hear it from the family themselves at the meeting, okay? It's really important that, you know, we support the family. If you don't want to believe our brother, if you don't want to believe your brother, read about the case in the newspaper. Hear it from the BBC, hear it from Metro News, hear it from the other mediums that have picked up on this story as a result of the works of Lee Jasper. Okay, and yeah, I know we have some personalities in our community, you know, some may love some may not, but let's not allow it to get in the way of the support that our sister needs. Hey, Brother Naya.
My sister, once you're getting paid, yeah, you're getting paid, your mouth seems to be shut. You understand?
Okay, well, let's have you step up, my brother. Please do step up. You know, whether you're, you know, in an unpaid capacity or a paid capacity, you know, I don't know what's the problem with our people being paid to do certain works. What we've got to look at is the works that they are doing. And, you know, we need more campaigners. We need more people out there on the battlefield, so to speak, supporting, families when in their time of need, challenging racism, challenging these institutions, and, we need some people out there doing it. We need more people out there doing it. We know Lee is a loud voice out there that's been doing it for many decades, and we need more of our people who are prepared, more of our men as well, who are prepared to step up and do it.
All I would say, Sister Shanice, is just look at the history. Look at the history. Look at the track records. Yeah, you can follow the track record.
We hear you.
So I don't go about no hearsay and rare. I don't. It's not that I don't like these people, but it's just like, okay, look at Sister Diane Abbott.
Mm-hmm. I know what you're saying, my brother. There are those in positions who, are failing us. And there are those in positions who are trying, and are those in positions who, don't even care about us as a people. But what can we do apart from do what we can do? But we're past the top of the hour now, my brother. So I do need to hand over to the next presenter in the house, okay? So just going to do my outro now. But, we can always, we're here all day, every day on the Big G. We can look at some of the internal problems that we have. But then, when we're talking about the suffering of this particular family, let's talk about how we can help and support the family. If we don't like what A is doing, what can B do? What can you do? What are you prepared to organize and do to support this family or similar cases like this? Let's not tear down the efforts of others. Let's work together in any way that we can. And where there does need to be internal scrutiny, if you feel that that's the need, well, why we always want to air our dirty washing out in public? Let's do better than that. Rise yourself up.
And I would say, listen to Sister Shanice show on YouTube. You know what I mean?
Thank
she's
you,
a great
Brother Naya.
ambassador.
I'm trying.
Along with, you know what I mean?
Thank you, Brother Naya.
I'd advocate. If
Rise
you listen
up.
to Sister Shanice show, rise up, my sister.
One love. Okay, we've heard from Brother Naya. Thank you, Brother Naya, for reminding everybody about my blog pages, or the vlogs they call it, on YouTube. So, let's not rely on, just one or two people to supposedly fight the cause on behalf of the entire, 2-3 million Africans here in London. We are going to have to stand up to defend ourselves. So just thanking everybody in advance for all of the support that you're going to be providing to Galaxy Afiwi as we support this family to get justice for her child. And, it looks as though we also need to take time out to hear more about the case in Manchester. I don't know about you. I wasn't aware of that case either. So, we're losing our children in so many different ways. And we're the ones that are going to have to do the works. We're the ones who are going to have to come together and organise to save our children. Okay, so we certainly hope that we're going to see you at the next Summit of Solutions meeting. That's going to be happening on the 15th of March. Put that one in your diary. The 15th of March. We want to see you there, and we need your support. We need you to be, doing what you can to contribute towards the upliftment of us as a people. Let's make sure that you're in the right lane. Race for survival.
Some of us, we're quick to use our skills and talents for those outside of our race. This is why I just want to rise up those who are using their skills and talents for our race and our people, because we are in a situation where we're running races. Each race are in their own lane running their race. They're running their race for their political development, they're running their race for their economic empowerment, and they're running their race to make sure that they are the superpower, or they're the ones with the power that are making the decisions. So each race is in their lane. If you look at it athletically style, we're on that relay track. We got African race in one lane, we got the Europeans in another lane, we got the Asians in another lane, the Chinese are even in their own separate lane. Everybody's running their race in their lane. They're developing themselves economically. They're developing their country. They're protecting their land. They're protecting their resources. They're developing themselves, their security forces, militarily, economically, politically, culturally, spiritually, each in their respective lane, developing their nation for generations to come. But because of the destruction that we have experienced, we don't realize, some of us, that as a race we are racing against other races. And so some of we did in the other race lane them are developed for them lane. We are developed them politically. We are developed them culturally. We're giving them all of our skills and talents, our creativities and our investments. We're financing their initiatives, their projects and their programs, and they're well done now. When you look to the African lane, very little are going there, so, and we wonder why. People are pointing and say, look on the African lane, not now going there, so that's because you're in the wrong lane. You're in the Chinese lane, I build up the Chinese lane. You're in the European lane, I build up the European lane. You build up the European family, you create family with the Europeans instead of the owner people. So enough mix up a guan. Time we realize that other races are racing against us and they're exploiting us for their own financial, economic and political gain, and we need to fix up and we need to focus on our lane and be doing what we can to develop our lane. We need to fix up and we need to focus on our lane and be doing what we can to develop our lane and be doing what we can to develop our
Summit solution, our purpose and intention towards our African liberation.
Date for your diary, date for your diary.
Sunday the 15th of March 2020 at the Classique.
From 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. 18 Upper Tooting Road, Tooting Beck.
SW17 7PG.
And the main theme for our Summit of Solutions meeting is going to be about diaspora economic opportunities in Africa. The Russians are having Russia-Africa Summit. The Chinese are having their China-Africa Summit. The Europeans are having their European-African Summits. The UK-African Summit. We need to have our Diaspora Africa Summit as well.
Summit of Solution is no illusion. Sunday the 15th of March 2020 at the Classique. That is our own purpose and intention.
SOS, SOS, I'm sending out a SOS to save our sons, save our sons. I'm sending out a SOS.
The only great Russian station. Seducing your ears with sound.
I want to thank you for listening to Sista Shanice on Galaxy Afri, the Black Empowerment Show. Going to be handing over to Brother Anu, and we look forward to you joining us for drumming as well on the day before Summit of Solutions.
Date for your diary.